Texas, Texas, Texas. Greetings from San Antonio, Texas. I'm back in Texas visiting for shits and giggles. It's my fourth time in Texas. I've been to Houston, I've been to Austin, I've been to Dallas, now I'm in San Antonio. Now, why did I pick San Antonio to come here? I wanted to get away to a place nearby, meaning not too far from Miami where I live, a few hours away by plane at most, somewhere in the South. I actually was gonna go to North Carolina, and then I settled on San Antonio because I've heard nice things about San Antonio. I've heard that it's worth seeing. I haven't really liked the other Texan cities that I've been to. I need to adjust my position or else my arm is gonna fall off. I haven't really liked the other Texan cities that I've been to. Austin, I think, is completely overrated. I don't understand why people rave about Austin all the time. The downtown area of Austin is fine. It's kind of cute, but it's tiny. It's like, from what I remember, it's like a 5-block radius. It's a tiny part of Austin, and beyond that, Austin is just like, eh. That was how I felt, at least, when I had visited back in 2018. I felt like beyond that, it was just a typical place and very industrial. And I don't like very industrial cities. That's how I feel about Los Angeles. That's how I also feel about Dallas. Dallas is a car city. You need a car to get around, and it's very industrial. Like, it's not pretty. It's not aesthetically pleasing as a city. But at least Dallas has a real gay neighborhood, like as it pertains to gay dating, since that's the title of this video. By the way, as a gay dating video, this one will be kind of lackluster and half-assed, I have to admit, because as you might be able to hear, I am recovering from a cold and I've been sick the whole time here. So I haven't been that proactive. To be transparent, I haven't gone to any gay bars. Like the apps, I've been very incognito. So that's that. But I will share with you my observations on that side of things later in this video. First, talking about Texas. So just mentioned Austin, Dallas, and then Houston. Forget about it. Houston is a mess. Houston is one of the worst, I think, tourist experiences I've ever had in America. Like, it's just a lame place. It's a lame place. Houston is one of those places where you're walking down the street, you're on a suburban street, and then suddenly you're like surrounded by an abandoned field with an abandoned like train track and barn. And I mean, that could be cool. Like, that feels very Texan in a sense, that you're out, you're out on the cornfields or whatever, but it just doesn't make sense as a city. And it kind of felt like a ghost town when I was there, and it's just not appealing. Anyway, that's a whole separate video. Literally, I made a video when I was in Houston, made a video when I was in Dallas, and then in Austin as well. So now I'm in San Antonio. Very, very different from the other cities that I just mentioned. So let's get into San Antonio. So why did I come here? I heard good things. I wanted to check it out. The Alamo is here. For those of you who grew up in the States, I'm sure you remember that being drilled into your head. Remember the Alamo, that's the saying. Well, the Alamo is here, and the Alamo is this like relic of Spanish rule and the history with Mexico and all that. So it's cool to see that, it's cool to see that in America, especially because you don't get to see like ruins that often in America, right? The United States is a relatively new country, culturally, as the United States. So you don't see that much history in this country and ruins and stuff like that. So that was cool to see. And it's funny because obviously coming here, I was like, I have to go see the Alamo. But the Alamo is so small, and it's so randomly located among all these like shops that I literally stumbled upon it, like unintentionally. I was coming back from Starbucks, out of all places, and I'm like, oh, it's the Alamo. Oh, neat, it's the Alamo. So San Antonio is actually really cute as a city. Like, I approve of San Antonio. Aesthetically, the architecture, the downtown area is very walkable. It's all walkable, and it's clean, and I like the architecture. It has that southern town or southern city feel to the architecture, the way the buildings look, kind of like a New Orleans, not quite like the French Quarter, but I don't even know how to describe it. Is it colonial architecture? Would that be the right terminology? But there's something about it that kind of reminds me of parts of Savannah or Charleston. Of course, you see the symbols of Texan culture, like the what do you call them? Taxidermy, like the bull's heads outside a store, and like sheriff sort of symbology, and all of that kind of stuff, and the Texan flag. And so, culturally it's kind of nice to see that. And then there's the Riverwalk. So the Riverwalk, it basically, there's this river beneath ground level, beneath street level, and it's really, really cute. It's really, really cute, really aesthetically nice to see, very charming. And alongside the entire river, you have shops, you have restaurants, you have bars. So I'm a fan of San Antonio. Like, I didn't really know what to expect, but I like it, and it's easily, I think, the most sort of easy on the eyes and pleasant city out of the four that I mentioned. Despite people always raving about Austin, I much preferred it here. But there are downsides to San Antonio. First off, there's a huge homeless community. Like, I don't remember ever seeing this many homeless people anywhere. I'm just shocked by how many there are everywhere. I don't know if that's an effect since COVID. I know that a lot of homeless populations, like in California, I love how this is California. Like, I'm randomly pointing behind me and it's California. But I've heard San Francisco, LA, these places, homeless communities have skyrocketed since COVID. So I don't know if that's part of it. I have noticed the same thing in Savannah, Georgia, my favorite little town in America. I've noticed that there's way more homeless people seemingly since COVID. And then I think, is it just that these places are now not getting visited as much, or that I've been here during like down seasons, so you just notice it more? I don't know. It has been kind of eerie to me how empty this city has been the whole time that I've been here. Now, I have been here in the middle of the week, not on a weekend, and there isn't that much to do here. I mean, again, it's very much like bars and restaurants, but that's not like gonna be busy, on a Tuesday afternoon, right? So maybe that's a part of it, but it's been a little strange to me, the vibe here between the homelessness. I've noticed a lot of cops here at night, like a lot, which always makes me kind of nervous, because usually when there's a lot of cops around, it means there's a reason. So I don't know if that's anything related to the homeless community. I don't know if there's a high crime rate. I haven't felt unsafe here at all. But again, it always feels eerie when you're walking down the street and it's just you and like 3 homeless people and like 2 cops around the corner. The other thing that I didn't know, I didn't expect this at all, San Antonio is like a convention or conference city. Like a Las Vegas or like an Anaheim, California, or like an Orlando, Florida. I didn't know this. So there's a ton of huge juggernaut hotels all next to each other, close vicinity. And you notice that people are here on conferences. I would say about 50% of the people who I've seen around, you can tell are here for a conference, meaning they have a lanyard around their neck. Just the way they're dressed, they have like a uniform of somebody who's here on a business trip. So that also makes it weird, because when the local community seems to mostly be comprised of fellow tourists, people here on conferences, and homeless people, you're like, what is the authentic local crowd like? Now, of course, I'm aware that I'm in the most touristy part of town, so I'm sure it's very different, even just like a mile or 2 outside of here. But there is this eeriness here. I always feel like these towns, it must be weird to live here. These places that are just so tourism centered, kind of like Las Vegas. It must be so strange to live there when most people come there just to party for the weekend and then to leave. Now, I guess you could say the same thing about Miami, where I live. I guess because I've been in Miami now for years, I'm aware that like in the city is where most of the locals are, and then there's all these different like pockets. But I guess somebody could come to Miami Beach and think the exact same thing, like, what a strange place to live. There's all these tourists. So I don't know. What I will tell you is between the Riverwalk, between the cute Alamo area, the cute downtown area of the bars and the restaurants, the whole time I've been here, I've been like, there's so much potential here. And there's actually a lot of construction happening here, which makes me think maybe the Texan government has the same mindset that I've had the whole time that I've been here, which is that this town, the city, has so much potential. If they really milk it, make it like clean it up, get rid of the homeless problem, this could be like the next Austin, Texas, in terms of being a new hub in Texas that people flock to. It has some work to get there, but there's a lot of potential here. I think it just has to figure out a more cohesive identity, because being a convention city or conference sort of hub is not enough to make this like one of the major cities of the state, like Austin or Dallas. And one thing I've noticed is they're really trying to exploit and milk the Alamo thing, which they should, frankly. Not many places in America have something like that to attract visitors and to build like a cultural identity around. So they're building a huge visitor center outside the Alamo. And when I was there the other day, I was like, they need to make this into an old town vibe, like with a saloon and, boutique local stores with homemade products and very like Texan aesthetic, to really build this out. Because if you've ever been to Old Town in San Diego, it's so cute. Old Town is this it's tiny, but it's this little part of San Diego where they basically recreated what old San Diego would have looked like, I guess, a few hundred years ago, with a saloon, that old Western vibe. Again, homemade products, cute little stores, like a general store, like a candle store, like a gunpowder store, like very old school American West type thing. And the sad part is the Alamo here, it's just so gimmicky. Like right around it, there's a Starbucks, there's a Madame Tussauds wax museum, there's a Ripley's Believe It or Not. So around this historic site, you have these little gimmicky attractions that make it feel like the Hollywood, Walk of Fame area, or like Times Square, where it's just like, ugh. And I'm shocked that they even got away with having those kinds of stores around that historic site. It's so jarring. Like you're on this little town square looking at the Alamo, and then you turn around and you just see all these like chain restaurants and stores. And I'm like, how did they not preserve this area to not allow for this? I mean, even living in Miami, right? Palm Beach is a town like an hour away from Miami. Palm Beach, they're not allowed to have those kinds of chain entities, like those franchises like Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, on the strip of like the bougie part of Palm Beach, because they don't want to lower the value of the area. They want to keep it like boutique stores and stuff like that. So it's possible to do with I guess, permits and legal stuff, legislation. So that's something that they should ideally like figure out here. And I think it could totally change the tourism vibe and really exploit what they have here with the remnants of the Alamo. So now let's get to the part that I'm sure you've all been waiting for: gay dating in San Antonio, Texas. So again, I have to say, this is not my best gay dating travel video because I've been under the weather, but let me just tell you my observations here. So first off, I haven't seen any gay bars in the downtown area. I haven't seen any rainbow flags at all, which is pretty unusual nowadays in the downtown part of a city, or like the major sort of tourist hub of a city. If you think about it, that's pretty rare. You could say, okay, well, it's Texas, so it's conservative, it's this, it's that. But I mean, Austin has that. Dallas has that. So I'm like, why wouldn't San Antonio have even just a few gay bars, a little hub, right? So I actually then looked up on Google Maps, are there gay bars? I was right that there are no real gay bars or gay establishments in downtown, the heart of San Antonio, where all the tourist stuff is. But there is an area outside of that that does have a ton of gay bars. And whenever I see that in any city, I always assume that that's because the local culture is not so keen on the gay thing. I remember going to Rome years ago, Rome, Italy, and I had the same observation that all the gay bars, all the gay establishments were like sequestered off in a corner on the edge of Rome. Coincidentally, on the opposite end of the Vatican and where all the sort of religious symbols of the city are. So then it became obvious to me, like, they're purposely wanting to keep that away because of homophobia. They don't want to be associated, but there is a need for it. So off to the side you go. So I thought maybe it's the same thing here, that the local culture is still too conservative to be okay with having that in the tourist hub, like the main sort of attraction of San Antonio, the heart of San Antonio. But I don't see why that would be so different from Austin, Texas, or Dallas, Texas, or even Houston, Texas, which all have a prominent like gay neighborhood, either in very close proximity to the main heart of those cities, or literally that is the heart of the city, like in their sort of busy downtown area. Now, in terms of the apps, I've been pretty disappointed here. I have to say, not many lookers in San Antonio, Texas, from what I've seen. Again, haven't talked to anybody. I haven't had the energy to want to talk to anybody or meet anybody, but yeah, I was not impressed. What's funny to me is how we're still in Texas, and I know Texas is a huge state, but aesthetically, like, I remember being in Dallas, Texas, and being like, damn, like at the guys on the apps. I didn't feel that way here. So it's just funny to me how these different cities attract different, I guess, crowds of people. And I'm telling you, there's something in that water in Dallas, Texas. If you want to go just to see attractive guys, that sort of stereotypical Texan man, go to Dallas, Texas, I'm telling you. Now, would I recommend San Antonio, Texas? As a gay guy, not particularly. Now, as a regular tourist, would I recommend it? I would for a weekend getaway with friends. Solo trip, I don't recommend it. It's not interesting enough. It's not stimulating enough. But as a weekend getaway trip, it's full of bars, it's full of restaurants, kind of like the way you would go to New Orleans just for a weekend, or Vegas just for a weekend, and that's enough. Like, you came, you saw, you conquered. I would say it's worth it if you happen to be close by already. You live in Texas, or you live in surrounding states in the South and you don't want to go far. Beyond that, it's honestly not too dissimilar from other much smaller cities in the States. I feel like there's kind of three tiers to American cities. I feel like you have the big leagues, like the San Franciscos and the New York cities. Then you have your mid-tier cities, which would be like, I guess maybe Miami. I mentioned Austin, Texas before, like more up-and-coming cities where a lot of people moved during the pandemic, a lot of new companies starting in these places for whatever reasons, cheaper, taxation purposes, whatever. And then you have your much smaller cities like a San Antonio or like Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I do worry for these cities. They often get kind of left behind and forgotten about. Hence why I think I partially felt this vibe of like, where is everybody? Like certain parts, I felt like it was almost like a ghost town. So I think with cities in between, like in Austin, Texas, or Portland, Oregon, or Miami, those cities are growing, and people from the much bigger cities are flocking to them. So those are definitely growing, but I feel like these smaller cities are losing traction. And so I do fear for these places, like, are they gonna end up like a Detroit, right? I think it's going to depend again on what the local governments do to try to like keep these places alive. And like I said with the Alamo, like even that, I can tell they're really trying to milk it for what it brings to the table and how it presents as different than the other major Texan cities. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with San Antonio. These are my thoughts on it. If you've ever been to San Antonio, I'm curious to hear what your feedback is. Did you feel the same way as me? Did you have the same experience and same observations? And if you have any questions in the comments, let me know. Always curious to see what you guys think and have to say.